mi nombre es Emilia Tamayo, yo formé parte del Transcript en el 2019. Mi segment se llamaba En Other News o En Otras Noticias. Tuve la total libertad de reportar sobre lo que yo considerara importante para la comunidad latina aquí en Western Mass. Conocí emprendedores de negocios latinos, museos, restaurantes, incluso conseguí un trabajo. En los últimos 2 años, estudiantes como tú y yo, latinos y de la mayoría global, conformamos menos del 10% de los productores del programa. Entonces, ¿qué haces? Necesito que se inscriban ya mismo para subir el porcentaje.
Day 4 of the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin included testimony from Courtney Ross, who dated George Floyd for nearly 3 years before his death, and several paramedics who were dispatched to the scene of Floyd's arrest. One paramedic testified he believed Floyd to be dead upon arrival, while another recalled having to take off his handcuffs to begin his resuscitation efforts. Chauvin's lawyer argued that he attempted to follow police protocol. Chauvin has been charged with unintentional second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter, although the third-degree murder charge was dropped by the judge. About 15 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's one-dose vaccines were spoiled when workers at a Baltimore plant accidentally mixed up ingredients, the New York Times reported on a Wednesday, delaying future shipments of the vaccine. The error took place several weeks ago at a plant run by Emergent Biosolutions. The Food and Drug Administration is now investigating the matter. But with Pfizer and Moderna still delivering their vaccines, federal officers think there will be enough doses available to vaccinate every American adult by the end of May. A $487,000 state grant awarded to the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority will allow the agency to pilot a Northampton-Holyoke-Springfield bus service launching on July 1st that will significantly reduce travel times in between the cities. Because there is no direct route, travel times can widely vary, but often exceed an hour and a half. The Northampton to Holyoke Mall service will take a projected 20 minutes, comparable to the end-to-end driving time of 16 minutes, and less than half the time required for the current bus route. And the Northampton to Springfield route will be cut to 35 minutes, compared to a 21-minute direct drive.
Welcome to halftime. Y'all ready for this?
While school sports provide a competitive way for students to demonstrate their athletic abilities, some students look to club sports to gain notoriety from universities and colleges in hopes of receiving scholarships and a chance to play at the next level. Most collegiate and pro players played club sports in their childhood, which highlighted their elite ability and commitment to the sport. This week we interviewed the athletes who balance playing high school sports along with an out-of-school, more competitive club team. Is it hard to balance playing your year-round club sport with your high school sports?
Balancing club sports with high school sports, it's pretty hard. It gets hard when you have like weekend tournaments and like practices that go into the night or something. But if you bring your homework and stuff on road trips, it's not that bad. But like practices sometimes get overwhelming because you kind of don't stop.
I would say that it's not hard to balance my high school sports and my club sports, just because our biggest season is during the summer for club, and during the school sports seasons we usually only have practice once or twice a week, or we don't have it at all in the spring during like regular season. I think the benefits for playing both club and high school sports are that you get a lot more time to play during your club season. That can just help you be better for your high school season, and overall it's a lot more playing time, a lot more practicing time, and just a lot more time to get better.
and playing with like other coaches and players definitely helps just improve your game, and you're exposed to like different playing coaching styles that just can make you a better player.
Significant differences between your club team and high school team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the same people. You have coaches that, we work with college coaches a lot, and people who have played or been involved with college, and the players are from like a lot of different areas, and there's like a trial aspect, so there's not everyone on the team.
I would say the most significant difference between my club team and my high school team is just that the level of the club team is a bit higher, just because everyone's doing it in their spare time and just doing it to get better for your high school season. So it's a little more focused, and everyone has to be a little more dedicated than just regular high school sports.
This week, the boys and girls indoor track team won to Chicopee, and the boys football team won to Pathfinder. The boys and girls basketball teams both lost to Holyoke High School.
Thanks for watching. DM us at Transcript NHS with more ideas for other weeks.
Back foot. I'm Lance Armstrong.
I'm Noah Buzansky.
No! This is Taking It to the Streets.
In 1971, the 26th Amendment was passed, which lowered the voting age to 18. Since the early 2010s, many cities have been lowering the voting age to 16, and Northampton could be the next one. Talk of 16-year-olds being able to vote has been going on for decades, and a movement has come out of it called Vote 16. This week, we hit the streets of downtown Northampton to hear people's thoughts on voting rights and whether or not 16-year-olds should be given the right to vote.
Should 16-year-olds be given the right to vote?
I personally don't think they should be given the right to vote. I think that 16-year-olds still have a lot to think about. I think even 18-year-olds still have a lot to think about, and I think that when you are 16, you still have a lot of influence from your parents, and you haven't really had the chance to go into the world and experience politics for yourself, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with her. I think 16 is just a tiny bit young. But I think 16-year-olds should have a voice of some kind, of course, and so getting involved in politics in some way is important at that age, but probably voting is a little bit young.
So you may be wondering what exactly people are doing about this movement. We spoke to Noah Cassis, the chair of the Northampton Youth Commission and head of the Vote 16 movement in Northampton.
For the last couple of years, I've been leading Vote 16 Northampton, which is an initiative to lower the municipal voting age in Northampton to 16. So what does that mean? Really quickly, that means that 16 and 17-year-olds would be able to vote in city council elections, school committee elections, and mayoral elections. That's it. Not state rep, not state senate, not the US Congress, and not the president. 16 and 17-year-olds are real people affected by real political issues, and they're real members of our community. And when we talk about issues like school funding, like teacher wages, like climate change, and like racial justice, young people are not only at the forefront of the movements fighting to improve our world and specifically our community in Northampton, but they're also really the age group that is going to be most affected by these issues in the future. So what we're asking folks to do is visit bit.ly/vote16-toolkit to take some actions really quickly. We're asking you to, if you support this measure, write a paragraph about why you support it. If you have a little bit less time, if you don't feel like you can write a paragraph, we have an online petition. That'll also be helpful, and we'll be able to show that you signed it.
The debate for whether or not 16-year-olds should be given the right to vote goes on as more people learn about the movement. For more information or to get involved, please email Noel Buzansky or Levi Armstrong at our school emails. Thanks, and have a great weekend.
The past year in the United States has seen a spike in the amount of anti-Asian hate crimes reported, especially in cities with larger populations of Asian Americans, such as New York City, Los Angeles, and Boston. After the mass shootings in spas in Atlanta, Georgia, that killed 6 Asian women out of the total 8 victims earlier this month, a movement was sparked to support the Asian community and to stand up to hate against Asian Americans. I went to the Stop Asian Hate rally in Springfield this past weekend to learn more about anti-Asian hate and to hear the voices of members in the local Asian community.
Honestly, I'm doing this for my kids. You know, my daughter is just, she's telling me, she's like, she saw the news about the Asian women being killed, and she said, Mama, should you be worried? Are you going to be killed? Are we going to be killed? You know, and what kind of mom would I be if I didn't tell her that we can do something about this?
I'm hoping that my words will reach young people, especially because I think they're the ones that need a lot of encouragement and support and guidance and explanation about why adults are hurting each other.
I then sat down with rally organizer Amihan Matias to gain her perspective on the recent flare of hate crimes against Asians and to learn about her experience as a first-generation Asian American living in the United States.
A hate crime is a crime of violence directed towards a specific group of people. And the reason that it's so hard to prosecute is because what you're attempting to do is trying to determine what the motivation is and intent. And if somebody doesn't, from the beginning, acknowledge or confess that it was, racial bias and hatred that motivated the act of violence or the crime, then it's really hard to identify that as a hate crime. And in the case of the Atlanta shootings, that is the reason why so many people in the Asian American Pacific Islander community are feeling pretty angered by the fact that this is not being identified as a hate crime. I became aware that I was different than others and that my Asian American identity was perceived in a particular way when I first came here to the East Coast from San Francisco, and where the other families and kids in the area had never met an Asian person. When we first arrived, our house got stoned, and there were the panes that were next to the front door were broken. And that was really seen as an act of aggression, and an act that conveyed the message that we don't want you, you don't belong here. So the model minority myth is a myth that has really been detrimental to Asian American Pacific Islander communities. In essence, it's the belief that Asian Americans are doing really well in this country, academically, professionally, economically. We get pit against other Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So we are held up as the example of what can be achieved if you only worked hard like the Asian Americans. There are so many countries and ethnic groups that fall under that umbrella. And people came here to the United States under different circumstances. So you can't ignore the fact that there are some Asian American Pacific Islanders who came here as refugees, escaping war-torn nations who left without anything. Racism and violence towards our communities is not something new. And I think that because this past year, there's been an escalation of violence against Asian and Asian American Pacific Islander groups, it's risen about 150% during this past year that we've been going through this COVID-19 pandemic, because there was an association made with COVID-19 and Chinese communities. It was referred to as the Kung flu, the Wuhan virus. And because the previous administration made that connection, it really invited a lot of anger and resentment and scapegoating towards our communities. And so we've really suffered, and the people that have been targeted the most are women and elders within the community. So essentially what I'm saying is we need you. Our communities are hurting, people are feeling unsafe, our businesses are suffering. Actually take the time to reach out and get to know Asian Americans, because part of the problem in this country is that we are so segregated, and that enables us to really see people as other and to dehumanize them because you don't see them or know them as people. So take the time to get to know us. Take the time to learn more about our history. Take the time to reach out and pull us into your community.
So what are we to make of all of this? Will America reflect on this pivotal moment in history and learn from past mistakes? Or will the country continue to see moments like this replay moving forward? These questions and broader questions about race and violence in the United States will take time and discussion to answer. I'm Stefan Johnson, and thank you for watching.